Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Amanda N. Newman. I'm an indie fantasy author of 4 books, and if you're interested in any of those, they're going to be linked in the description box below. So, on the day this video is going up, it's been exactly 2 years since I published this book right here, Children of the Outback. And it has been a wild ride. And I'm sure some of you are going to say, but Amanda, we just looked on Amazon and the ebook copy is saying November 23rd, 2020, not September 11th, 2019. What's up with that? November 23rd is actually the date that I moved from the previous self-publishing company that I was working with to Amazon KDP, and when I was setting it up, I'm not sure if I did something wrong, but it wouldn't let me change the publication date for the ebook to reflect the correct date, but the paperback one does. So, on this monumentous occasion of it being the 2nd anniversary from the release date of Children of the Outback, I've got a little something special in store for you today. And that is 10 things that you may not have known about Children of the Outback. I'm hoping to do more of these videos in the future, especially if you all are interested in it. I personally like looking behind the scenes and seeing maybe what's not known or what's lesser known, or like different things that went into either an author's process or like leading up to a video game or lore stuff. And that's basically what this is. Also, I'd like to apologize in advance for the quality of this video, the lighting, anything that might not look the best. As of right now, this is the 3rd time I am trying to record this video, and it has been nothing but technical difficulty after technical difficulty. So, we're back to filming on mobile for the time being. But that's not what you're here for. You're here for 10 things you may not have known about Children of the Outback. So, number 1, Children of the Outback was originally supposed to be a standalone book. And you're probably going to say, but Amanda, if I go on Amazon, it says 1 out of 2 books in the Tales from the Outback series. Well, that is correct. It was, emphasis on was, supposed to be a standalone. I got about 3/4 or so of the way through the first draft before I started wanting to explore other character storylines, different parts of the lore, different parts of the world. Okay, so to point number 2. Scar Shepherd's name was changed. So, if you're not familiar with the series, or you just clicked on this video because you like lists of 10 things that people may not have known about stuff, or anything of that nature, but you're not actually familiar with the series, Scar Shepherd is one of the Bitzer characters who shows up pretty early on in the book. He is also on the cover right here. So, in the original first draft, Scar's name was Shasta. And this came to me at the time where I was not sure if I was going to publish the 2nd book in the Hybrid Empire trilogy. Eventually, I decided that I did not want to use that name for this character, so I changed it to Shanta. but that didn't feel like it quite fit either. And ultimately, after going through and changing the first couple of chapters and changing the name, I eventually settled on Scar for reasons that are explained in the book. So I'm not going to go into them here. I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible. Point number 3, which segues backwards a little bit into point number 1, being that Children of the Outback was originally supposed to be a standalone. Point number 3, Knight, Tyra, and the rest of the Pikers were not in the original outline. And the reason for that being, again, because Children of the Outback was planned to be a standalone. When I decided to change it and explore more of the world, more of the lore, I did want to give some other characters almost like a cameo type appearance. Anybody who's familiar with the series or who has looked it up on Amazon and looked at the individual books, Tyra is one of the main storylines that is explored in book 2, so I wanted to use her at least briefly in book 1, so there was a little bit of a basis there. Point number 4. I've gotten a few questions from a few different people on where I got the inspiration to write Children of the Outback, and I'm answering that now. Children of the Outback was inspired by a novel-length Harry Potter fanfiction story. A lot of you may not know, or possibly not really even care, from early high school, even up to the present day, I read and have read a fair amount of fanfiction. And I can't really explain why that is. Part of it might just be like I'm not always or very rarely completely satisfied with the way something goes, or the way a series ends, or pairings in a series, and so on and so forth. So anyway, moving back to the point, Children of the Outback's inspiration came from a Harry Potter fanfiction that was basically the length of a full novel. I read through it, I believe, in my last year of high school or my first year of college. Loved it. Loved this whole alternate universe type of premise where what the Wizarding World would be like if Voldemort won. And ultimately decided to write my own dystopian type of fantasy book just from reading that. The fanfiction itself was titled Cruel and Beautiful World by Elena Fioria on fanfiction.net. Do not go and look it up. It has since been taken down. And that's because the author decided to rework the storyline, rework certain aspects of it into an original dystopian sci-fi novel trilogy. If you want to check that out, it is called the Cruel and Beautiful World Trilogy. Book 1 is called Broken Wings, and it is by L. Stoddard Hancock. Point number 5. It took me 5 years from when I first sat down to start writing Children of the Outback until publishing it. And a majority of that time was spent in the drafting phase. I no longer have access to the exact date of when I sat down to start writing it. I believe it was sometime in April of 2014. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I published Children of the Outback on September 11th, 2019. Point number 6. Children of the Outback went through several different cover design concepts before I ultimately decided on the current cover, which I absolutely love. I am not proud to say a lot of those scrapped initial concepts were covers that I attempted to make myself. Ultimately, I was not satisfied with my own work. I had thought that because I knew how to use Photoshop and had access to some photos either through royalty-free stock photos or that I had taken myself, that I could design a cover. And ultimately, after trying multiple times, I was not satisfied. I had tried commissioning a friend of mine who was an art major to make me a cover, and ultimately that ended up not panning out. At one point I had inquired with the designer that made the cover for the last Cruel and Beautiful World book, and their price was way outside of the budget that I had on what was realistic for me to even be able to afford. I actually found the designer that did this cover through a pre-made cover design website. I had inquired with her about what she would charge for a custom cover, and found that it was not going to be as expensive as I thought, and much more doable than I had thought after inquiring with one designer. Point number 4. The original premise of Children of the Outback versus the final product was changed drastically. When I first started writing Children of the Outback, I partly did so because I was feeling a little bit burnt out from working on the third Hybrid Empire book. But I wanted to explore a little bit more of an adult story, a story that would deal with a little bit more dark themes. But because at that point I had only written a vampire werewolf type story, Children of the Outback was originally going to be another vampire werewolf story. And it wasn't until I read that fan fiction that I decided that maybe that's not what I want to do again. Maybe I want to change it from vampires and werewolves to magic wielders versus non-magic wielders, but still keep a lot of the dystopian, world-building-esque type of thing. And change a few things there, too. With the original concept, I managed to write 2 to 4 chapters or so. Those are all on my Wattpad profile as bonus content, which I will link below if you want to check it out. If you have read Children of the Outback and want to see what it was going to be like originally, what kind of story I originally had planned, you can go check that out. It is completely free, and it might be something fun for if you're familiar with the book to kind of see where it came from. Point number 8. And again, if you're not familiar with the book, you will not recognize this character's name. Or maybe you would. Maybe you read the beginning of it and then life got busy and you will recognize the name. In the beginning of Children of the Outback, one of the main characters, Grace, is being held in a slave holding camp. And while she's in that camp, she becomes friends with another girl named Luca. As it stands right now, Luca is only in the beginning of the book. However, when I was outlining Children of the Outback, and even up to working through the first draft, I had an extra chapter written where Luca was going to make a reappearance later on in the book, and we were going to find out who requested her as their slave. So a bit of a background into the world and the lore. Slaves are not eligible to be put into the slave trade until they turn 16. Luca was told by the warden of the camp that she was living in that somebody has already requested her as their slave. So basically, when she turns 16, she is just going to go directly to that person. We were going to find out who that was. She was going to make a reappearance later in the book. And I believe I do have that chapter backed up somewhere. Now, as for if that will ever see the light of day, maybe I'll release it as bonus content somewhere. I'm not sure yet. I have to decide on that. Point number 9. Children of the Outback was my first attempt at writing a first-person, multiple point of view novel. So anybody that's familiar with Children of the Outback, it is told from multiple different first-person points of view. Up until I started writing this book, I cannot really name a lot of other authors that have done this off of the top of my head. One I know of is the last book in the Divergent trilogy. Was told from 2 different points of view. I believe in the last Twilight book there was a section that was from Jacob's point of view as opposed to Bella's. But other than that, I really can't name any off of the top of my head. This leads us into point number 10. From the beginning, I planned to self-publish Children of the Outback. And there's quite a few reasons behind that. Number 1, the first-person multiple points of view, which, like I said, I can't really name a lot of other books that have done this. The other point, which going back towards it me taking me 5 years to write the book, Children of the Outback is a very long book. It tops out at around 205,000 words. And you can even see how thick the spine is. All of that leading up to, plus the dark themes, the mixture of dystopia, which is usually associated with sci-fi, being mixed with fantasy. I did not think any traditional publisher was going to want this book. I did not believe that any agent would want to touch this book. They don't want over a certain word count, especially not if you're an unknown author. If you're Stephanie Meyer or J.K. Rowling or Stephen King or any of the big names like that, you can get away with it. But nobody's going to want a 205,000 word manuscript from Amanda N. Newman, who nobody has heard of. So I never even considered querying this book, never considered submitting to publishers, because I genuinely believed that nobody was going to want this book. I expected it to be a lot more polarizing than it is. As of filming this video, which is September 7th, 2021, it is sitting at 21 reviews on Amazon with an overall 4.5 star rating. So that's one area where I was wrong. It's not seeming to be as polarizing as I thought it was going to be. And there you have it. 10 things you may not have known about Children of the Outback. If you like this video, especially if you want to see more of these, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, because that helps smaller YouTubers like me to gain visibility, to get our work out there. If you have any questions about the book, leave a comment down below, and I would be happy to answer. And expect more of these videos in the future. I enjoyed doing this. Like I said, I enjoy this type of content. I hope you guys do too. And again, I'm Amanda N. Newman. I am an indie fantasy author of 4 books, which are linked below.